There's a button in every F-35 cockpit that no pilot ever wants to press. Not the ejection handle, not the weapon release. This one is labeled simply EMCON. When that light comes on, everything goes dark. No AWACS, no satellite link, no data from the destroyer 200 miles away. Just you, your jet, and a sky full of threats you can't see yet. The F-35 was built to be the quarterback of a football team that never breaks huddle. But what happens when the radios die mid-play? Today we're going inside the one scenario NATO trains for, but never admits. The day the world's most networked fighter jet loses its network. This is what happens when the F-35 goes blind. If you've ever wondered what the classified briefings won't tell you, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe, then let's go dark. To understand why this nightmare matters, you need to understand what the F-35 actually is. Ask most people, and they'll tell you it's a fighter jet, a stealth bomber, a multi-role Swiss Army knife that costs $2 trillion. But ask the pilots who fly it, and they'll tell you something different. They'll tell you the F-35 isn't really a fighter at all. It's a server rack with wings, a flying command center that just happens to carry missiles. Here's what I mean. The F-35's most powerful weapon isn't the AIM-120 in its bay. It's the MADL, the multi-function advanced datalink, that lets it receive targeting data from satellites, ships, other aircraft, ground forces, all simultaneously, all fused into one picture in the pilot's helmet. Ask yourself, if your phone died right now, how lost would you feel? That pilot isn't scanning the sky looking for threats. The network is doing it for them. They just know. One F-35 can create a complete battle space picture and share it with dozens of friendly aircraft. Legacy fighters that can't see the threat, they don't need to. The F-35 sees for them. That's why NATO calls it the quarterback. It doesn't just fight, it orchestrates. It tells everyone else where to strike, and it works. When the network is up, the F-35 is nearly unbeatable. But here's the question nobody wants to ask. What happens when the quarterback can't call the plays? In a perfect war, the war the F-35 was designed for, the kill chain looks like this. A satellite detects a Russian bomber taking off from Murmansk. That data flows to an AWACS flying over Poland. The AWACS refines the track and passes it to the F-35 patrolling the Baltic. The F-35 never turns on its own radar, never reveals its position. It just quietly positions itself for the perfect shot. At 80 miles, it launches an AIM-120. The missile's guided by mid-course updates from the network. The Russian pilot, flying an Su-35 with powerful radar, never sees the F-35. Never knows he's under attack until his warning receiver screams. But then, what if the AWACS goes down? What if Russian jammers flood the satellite links? What if the F-35's own MADL, its lifeline to the network, suddenly goes silent? Now, there's no mid-course update. The missile goes autonomous, using its own radar, less accurate, shorter range, easier to dodge. But it's worse than that. Because now, the F-35 pilot has a choice that could kill them either way. Turn on their own radar. Brilliant, powerful, everything you could want. And instantly light up on every enemy scope within 200 miles. Or stay dark, stay blind. Hope they can spot the threat visually in a sky where the enemy knows exactly where to look. This isn't theoretical. In classified war games, when the network dies, the F-35's effectiveness drops by 60 to 80%. So, here's the real question. Why build a fighter so dependent on something that can be switched off? Russian military doctrine is built around one assumption. NATO's network is their strength, so break the network. And they've built an entire suite of weapons specifically to do it. Let's talk about how they actually kill the network. First, GPS denial. Russia's Boris Oglebsky's 2 and R-330 Zeiss H jamming systems can drown GPS signals across hundreds of miles. The F-35 has backup inertial navigation, but that drifts over time. How long could you navigate with just a compass and memory? Second, AWACS hunters. Russia's long-range S-400 and S-500 missiles can reach out 250 miles. Their doctrine is simple: force AWACS to stay far from the front. When AWACS retreats, the F-35 loses its eyes over the horizon. Third, total communications denial. High-power broadband jamming across every frequency the F-35 uses. MADL defeated. Satellite links cut. Every data link fried. This isn't science fiction. Russian forces have deployed these capabilities in Syria, in Ukraine, and in exercises on NATO's borders. In 2024, a Russian electronic warfare unit demonstrated they could jam GPS across eastern Poland for 6 hours, wide enough to affect F-35 operations across the entire Baltic region. The F-35's response, EMCON, Emission Control, go completely silent. No radar, no radio, no data links. And that silence, that's not confidence, that's survival mode. Now compare that to the Russian approach. Russia never assumed their networks would work. They assumed satellites would get shot down, that AWACS would be jammed or destroyed, that the fancy data links would go dark on day one of a real war. So they built different fighters. Not better, different. Look at the Su-35. It doesn't need a network to kill you. It has the Irbis-E radar, enormous, powerful, detects targets at 250 miles. It carries the R-37M missile, ranged out to 200 miles. It has an OLS-35 infrared search and track system that can spot a fighter's heat from 50 miles away. No radar needed. Is it as stealthy as the F-35? Not even close. Is its sensor fusion as elegant as the F-35's? Absolutely not. But when everything goes dark, when the AWACS is gone, when the GPS is jammed, when the data links are snow, the Su-35 pilot still has options. They can turn on that massive radar and try to out-detect the enemy. They can maneuver for a visual engagement. They can fight independently. The F-35 was built assuming the network never fails. The Su-35 was built assuming the network never works. So, which pilot is more prepared for the worst day of their life? In a sky full of jamming and chaos, the F-35 becomes a very expensive stealth aircraft, with basic sensors and a pilot trained to let the computer do the work. The Su-35 becomes exactly what it was always supposed to be, a predator that never needed permission to hunt. This scenario, network blackout, F-35 degraded, peer adversary pressing the advantage, isn't theoretical. It's run constantly in classified exercises, Red Flag, Northern Edge, the war games at Nellis that simulate exactly this nightmare. And the results? The Air Force doesn't like to talk about them publicly. But the pattern is clear. When Blue Force F-35s with full network support faces Red Force, peer adversaries in a jammed environment, the advantage shifts. Not completely. An F-35 is still an F-35, but the margin for error shrinks. The exercise after action reports use careful language. Degraded C2 environment, challenge communications, concepts under development. But the pilots who fly know what it means. The F-35 was built for a war where information flowed freely. Russia and China are building forces for a war where nothing flows at all. And that gap between the war we planned for and the war we might get, that's what keeps the planners awake. The NGOAD, the sixth-generation fighter currently in development, is explicitly designed to avoid this mistake. Less network dependency, more electronic warfare integration, weapons that don't need mid-course guidance, doctrine that assumes chaos. But NGAD won't be operational until the 2030s. The F-35 has to fight tonight. And sometimes, tonight means going in alone. So, let's be clear about what this means. The F-35 isn't a bad fighter. In the war it was designed for, the networked, coordinated, information-rich battlefield, it's nearly unstoppable. When the quarterback can read the whole field, nothing beats that advantage. But war doesn't always give you the conditions you planned for. Russia and China have spent 30 years studying the F-35's weakness. They know it depends on networks. They know networks can be jammed, denied, destroyed. Their entire electronic warfare doctrine is built around creating the one scenario the F-35 was never supposed to face, a fair fight in a dark sky. The nightmare isn't that the F-35 is helpless. It's that the F-35's pilot trained for years in a world where the computer did the work, and now, in the worst moment, the computer is silent. Would you bet your life on a network that might not be there? That's not a design flaw, it's a design choice. The F-35 sacrificed independence for integration, and most days, that trade-off wins wars. But the day it doesn't, the day the screens go dark and the radio goes silent and the pilot realizes they're alone in contested airspace, that's the day we'll find out if the F-35 is more than its network. NATO trains for it because they know it could happen. They hope it never will. But hope isn't doctrine. And hope doesn't win dogfights. If you could only fly one jet into a sky where nothing works, which would you trust? The quarterback who lost his team, or the brawler who's been fighting alone all along? Would you rather take the F-35 with full network support, or the F-22 that's designed to work independently? Tell me in the comments, and tell me why. I'm reading the best arguments. And if you want to see why the F-22's retirement timeline just became NATO's biggest headache, watch this video next. On this channel, we don't just compare specs. We expose the war plans behind them.